Are you ready for it?
I'm a real tough kid. I can handle my shit. They said fake it, gotta fake it till you make it, and I did.
I'm just a terrible person, I guess.
Lights, camera, bitch. Even when you wanna die. Breaking down, I hit the floor. All the pieces of me shattered as the crowd was chanting more. With a broken heart.
Who's afraid of a little old me?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am the Raging Tomato here, bringing to you live, like Throwdown Thursday number 285. I don't know. We've been doing these a while, haven't we? I'm pretty sure we have. It's been a while. You're muted. I don't know.
I
if you're-
have a terrible echo, Sarah, that I just need to find.
She messed it all up, guys. She's been here 1,000,001 times, and she's
Okay,
still.
we good.
It's been too long. See, this is what happens when you don't stream on a weekly basis.
True.
You get all messed up, mixed up, turned around, don't know where your buttons are, and can't figure out what your name is. I'm still figuring
Audio
out mine
overlapping.
sometimes.
No, I figured it out. Thanks. Sorry, I'm reading chat.
Genius.
Alrighty, I'm ready to go. How are you? And I already know
Oh.
because I asked you this already.
That's okay. My side didn't see it, so
Tell
I
everyone
always.
how you are, Sarah.
I'm just fabtabulous, I mean, I'm actually quite tired because somebody kept me up till it was 3 a.m. in the morning on a voice chat. Okay, so listen to all of our Discord maters. All right, we're officially kicking off the Discord. It's up, it's rocking, it's kicking. I think it's doing great. You guys are having some amazing conversations in there. But Neve asked me last night, she's like, "Have you ever just gone in your own server?" And I'm like, "For what?" Aside from reading the chat. She's like the voice chat. Have you done voice chat? I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, you want to try it? Let's do it." And I was like, "Okay."
10
So
minutes,
went
just sit in
in.
there, see what happens.
And what was it? It took only 2 minutes, if even that.
Not even, like 10
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah.
Somebody came in
and
immediately.
Somebody came in. We had a nice conversation. Well, Neve and Darth went a little toe to toe. I was like, "I'm not modding this. I'm not mod. Okay, I'm modding this."
So good.
But it was fun nonetheless. But it was, next thing I know, I look at the clock and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I have to get up in 4 hours. Thank you. And then I have to go to work. And then I didn't get like a nappy nap in, so no nappy nap for me. So you've got
Okay.
me for the whole night, nice and cranky tomato. You've got cranky
Okay, let's
tomato.
go.
Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
I don't know what we're going to do with ourselves this evening, but I think it'll be fun nonetheless. But we did pick up a couple things for the whole
True.
Jargate stuff, right?
Yeah.
I went ahead and got myself a little pickle jar thanks to my daughter. I just got them. Actually, my groceries arrived this morning, and so a pickle jar. I happened to pick one out, and she always says, "Mom, can you open up the pickle jar, please?" And so when I watched Andrew Wilson fail at opening a jar, I know it was an olive jar, but it was a jar nonetheless, and massive failure. So I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, I should try my own jar. Which one do you have? These are easy.
That's all I had. That's all they had.
It's like pop done. This is unacceptable. And gracefully, this one comes pre-wrapped, so there was no pre-popping to help give me the advantage. So I was like, oh, that works out to keep me honest. So let me go ahead and take that part off if I can.
Are you going for it? Are you going for
That's the
it?
real struggle. Well, I'm getting the
Okay.
So I got my hands got water all over them from the pickle jar, a greasy pickle jar.
Weren't
All
they
right.
opening olives or was it
They were
pickles?
opening olives.
Oh,
It was
okay,
an olive
okay.
jar. But
Let me
I
put my
figure I'm not going to do any extra shopping just to prove a point. But I always like to say we need men to open the pickle jars.
true. But
So
this one, as you said, is probably pre-cooked. So
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Pop that little bad boy open. That's got to be easy. It's going to be click.
do it.
Oh my God.
Oh
Okay. Yeah. See,
shit.
that was
Okay, yeah,
way too
super
easy.
easy.
Too
So
easy.
easy.
All right. Let me, oh, yeah, that was too easy. That one didn't even like pop on me. That's a fail.
These are
I feel like that should have been harder. Unacceptable.
those are delicious, but ridiculously
See,
spicy.
I like pickles, but I'm just not in a pickle mood. I'm just not. I believe somebody just messaged me how to join the panel. It was somebody. Hold on. Oh, let me shoot somebody because a Gnostic informant asked how he can join this evening, and I'd love to get Gnostic on tonight. So I'll tell him to hold off,
We
and
won't be long.
I'll send you the link. Let's go 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30
In
minutes
about
fine.
30 minutes. All right, 30 minutes. Okay. So Neve came to me and said, Sarah, I'm ready for another Throwdown Thursday. Let's have some fun. And I said, bet, let's do it. And this was weeks ago. God, I feel like I'm so far ahead scheduled. I'm scheduled all the way through like June 12th.
This was
That's
like a month, I'm
ridiculous.
pretty sure. Like a
Yeah,
month ago.
I've been like pre-scheduled for because a lot of people are bringing stuff to me and it's great and I love it.
Mhm.
Keep doing that, maters. I love it. You make it so much easier for me and it's so less stressful. I actually have like 3 more thumbnails I got to build out. Um, but Neve came to me and said, I want to do a Throwdown Thursday. I said, all right, what's your claim? And she said, liberalism is here to stay. And I said, oh, do tell. So lay your claim.
Yeah, okay. So I believe liberalism is here to stay. Today, I think that I obviously want to focus on the benefits of liberalism, but I think I also need to like lay down some terms because there is a very nebulous term. When you say liberalism, you're essentially when you say liberalism is here to stay, what you could essentially be arguing for is that the sky is always blue. Like it's almost meaningless in terms of how broad it is. But I also thought that was an enticing way to just start a discussion. I know that we could obviously narrow it down.
Mhm.
So I could sit here all day and list the benefits of liberalism, and I will. But I think for people who are coming on the panel, what I'm hoping to see is them posit alternatives for liberalism, and I want to see it kind of sussed out and see how those alternatives could actually be actionable. I think that would be like a really interesting way to conduct the conversation, but again, to each their own. They are not necessarily needing to do that. It is what it is. So I guess just to start, obviously, when you say liberalism, you can be referring to like one of three things. So you could be talking about classical liberalism, you've been talking about modern liberalism, or neoliberalism, right? And so throughout society, we have moved through each iteration. We build on the sorts of policies and things that come from the previous, sort of era, you could say, and we attempt to address like inequities in society or improve existing structures, right? And
Mhm.
to give you some background on the angle I'm kind of coming at it from, I am Canadian, so I'm not American, but again, I think most of the politics that I consume are American in nature. So I'm not necessarily taking a Canadian angle at this, but I would consider myself to be on the left to some degree. I don't know, like if I think possibly we have like a social democracy, and I think I'm actually okay with that. So I'm probably um, I don't know if I'm like outright socialist, but possibly. Um, yeah, I think that when it comes to the way that I look at society and the way that I look at government. Um, it almost seems kind of silly to apply like a blanket because there are certain things that I obviously break from when it comes to the sorts of policies that like left-leaning governments carry or like socialist governments carry. I wish that I could be like an issue by issue voter, but unfortunately, there's some things that exist in society that obviously sometimes necessitate that I vote left. So it is what it is. But yeah, that's kind of how I wanted
What's
to open it up.
what's like your what's the biggest topic that you would immediately vote left on? Like no ifs,
Um,
ands, or buts about it. I'm voting left.
So, I mean, the thing about left and right, I guess when I'm looking at it, so like what is one topic that I think would entice me? Or are you saying like something that would be like super important? Um, I
Like
would
if
obviously
even if everything else was wrong, but that one topic came up and it was like it was the left side that was like, yes, we will do it this way. And you're like, yes, I want it done that way, but everything else sucked. What is the one thing that you would be like, I have to go that way, no matter what?
um I think probably some sort of electoral reform. And I think also like getting money out of politics. Those are two things that I think would be hard to make a full analysis of both positions. If that was ever on the table, then you would obviously want to jump at that. Now, I don't know if people, if that's viable in the American situation, but I know in Canada, it's discussed quite often, and even more so. Just to provide more context, I think the United States and Canada do a first past the post system, I'm pretty sure.
Mhm.
And so the first past the post system, obviously, as we recognize it, at least the way that it's kind of manifested is put us in this situation where you vote red or you vote blue, you vote left and you vote right. And I think
Mhm.
what's obviously tragic about that is that in the United States there's like 333 million of you, and so to obviously say that there's a bit of nuance in society when it comes to left and right wing, like the fact that 333 million people are just tossed into left or right is kind of ridiculous. And Canada has a similar circumstance now, but more or less we have more parties, more things to choose from. So I think that if they were ever able to put like something called proportional, I think it's proportional representation on the table, then essentially I think any party that would reach some degree of like threshold or support could have some sort of support in the federal institution or the federal, provincial, state, whatever you want to call it. So,
Mhm.
for example, um, let's say you live in the red states and you're a Democratic voter, you vote blue, it doesn't matter, your vote doesn't count. But there are always, in major states, like there are always areas of the country, I think, that do vote or break from, like, I would say the pack. And so the benefit to proportional representation is that I think it would mean that like a certain amount of seats or a certain amount of votes for any given party, like you're essentially just trying to get like a threshold for the candidates that are involved, and then you kind of send them. So it would still be reflective. Sorry, you send them to whatever the parliamentary system is, or the I'm trying to think what you guys call the House of Representatives. Is that what
Yeah.
your or
We
the yeah? I'm just trying to think of a good way to explain this because I think in my head it makes sense, but I'm like, um, I'm trying to think like what the best
well,
way is. So
what is it? Is it gerrymander? Jerry,
yeah,
where we move districts around strategically to ensure like one cancels out the other and stuff like that.
yeah.
I know we have that built into place, like as something that's done. But I mean, yeah, I think that would kind of make sense in terms of ensuring your vote doesn't just get canceled out just because but I don't know. Do you just add them all up and call it a day? You
Well,
know,
I
I
think
mean, what is the word? You're laughing at me.
like
What's the fucking
like
word? Is it
gerrymandering.
gerrymandering?
Yeah, it is
Isn't that what that
gerrymandering.
is?
Yeah.
Like you're gaslighting me, Pursuit. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
All right.
It happens everywhere, but
But
I don't
you're
understand the justifications for
so
them.
you want to ensure that you want to ensure that every vote is actually accounted for. Like in
Well,
its
yeah. I want to ensure that every vote matters. So,
Mhm.
like it's not so much that so it could be the case that and this is often the case in where in situation places where I live where there's three parties at a time, so we'll call one super left and right. We'll just call them that just for whatever's sake. And so what happens is when you do first past the post, the dominant party gets to send one representative, we'll call them, to the government, right? And so, but what essentially ends up happening is that is the party that has been able to accumulate the most concentrated votes, but they're not always the party that is like that carries like the prevailing idea. So, for example, like if what is it called? It's not pluralism. Oh my gosh, I should have had this written out. But so essentially, like say you live in a town with 100,000 people, right? um 40,000 of those people are conservative in whatever vibes, whatever, right? And so they vote for the one their one politician, and then the rest of society, the remaining 60%, they're split. One super left and one is just left, right? And
Mhm.
so each of those parties, however, with the remaining percentages, would only be able to take on 30% of the votes, right? And so that writing is not accurately represented in government when you consider that 60% of the population is actually quite liberal, but the 40%, like the people who were able to organize
Populist.
the most, were able to send that person. So in proportional representation, the idea would be ideally that you have like some sort of threshold for what constitutes like I'm just trying to think what the fucking word is.
But that's the benefit of smaller government, though, and residing in a place where, you are surrounded by people who believe in the same thing as you, right? That's the wonderful world of, like here we have counties, right? And then we
Mhm.
have, cities built inside of that. And then we have the state. And then we go to the United States. And so each tier is, it's your community and then your county and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think that
Yeah.
that is the important part behind that too. Like I get it if there's a populace, like that makes sense, but that's the benefit of being able to live wherever you want.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I definitely understand that motivation. It's just what actually becomes the issue is that the federal party platforms and the federal positions don't accurately reflect the population. And so in the
Mhm,
US, I think they do because there's
mhm,
just a little bit more polarization there.
right.
But for example, like I think say for example, like the party who accumulates the biggest chunk of votes for a specific candidate, maybe they send three candidates, right?
Mhm,
But because the other two chunks of like 30%, 30% are still significant and they still represent a significant portion of that 100,000 people, then they
right.
also send, but maybe they only send one or two or whatever, right? So that's kind of the idea. It's that, again, there being a threshold, there being a significant amount of people, that should be able to hopefully get a bigger and more accurate way to like represent constituents, I guess,
Mhm.
instead of having it
So
be so polarizing.
so I want to move forward to, because that was kind
Hmm.
of a a side quest for me, but if you said liberalism is here to stay, what would you believe would be out there that would, I mean, is there something that could potentially get in the way of liberals? Like
Yeah,
any specific,
definitely.
yeah.
So I think that the liberalism is just inherently like vulnerable to populism. And populism again thrives on a lot of really interesting premises to sort of deconstruct a lot of the liberal state and the liberal like precedents almost. Obviously, Donald Trump is like a really big example of that right now, and so essentially what the way I see it anyways is that liberals have kind of shoehorned themselves into a system that is like very pervasive and hard to root out because essentially it's like it's the establishment, right? But they're also in kind of drawing their battle lines. I feel like there are other entities you could call them, or things like populism that don't play by any particular. They have a tendency to do the same things over time, but they do so existing outside of norms. So you know you can't. It's hard to fight a battle against somebody who isn't like going by any sort of rules, right? Like, there's no agreed upon rule set. Not to say that everything they do exists outside of the system or that it's illegal. It's just the things that they use government to do is to undermine like the liberal stuff. So like the people like they obviously will use like narratives, people versus the elites. I think would obviously be like a really big one. And they use those sorts of narratives to justify like taking at first I would say like austerity, but then also deconstructing the state and then like centralizing power, I think, through the executive. So I think that liberalism is really, really vulnerable to that and has been historically.
You mentioned, being versus the elites. Is there like elitist in the Liberal Party?
I think the idea of there being liberal elites, I think, is such a nebulous topic. But yeah, I think that definitely exists. In Canada, we call them like the conservatives will call them like the Laurentian elites, or the people down east or whatever, because that's such a big population center for us, and they have a tendency to like drag the ship around with their population. But yeah, I think that the idea of there being some sort of I don't want to say necessarily oligarchy, because oligarchy is definitely more. I'm just trying to think of the way. Like, there are autocratic like entities that exist within liberal structures, and I think when you're saying liberal elites, I think that's who I think of. But a lot of other people see it in a more cultural lens. They look at things that are obviously trying to promote values and things they don't agree with. So I think liberal elites works so well because it's so nebulous and it's so subjective to the individual.
Right. For liberalism, in terms of, you mentioned there was classic, there was neo, and then there was modern. Can you define those out for me, how you understand them?
Okay, so I think like classical liberalism, and I'm gonna butcher this, like essentially
I'd butcher it worse.
honestly, I'm gonna do my best. I did have some notes, but essentially there was a time where liberalism was kind of coming into society, and I think it was existed to sort of oppose a lot of like authoritarian structures and a lot of like pre-existing institutions. And so their initial focus again was to focus on limiting government to prevent tyranny, right? And so that was one of the first things that classical liberalism did, but it didn't do a lot for people in unique circumstances, like people who are more vulnerable, and it also was very susceptible. So I feel like it's like this is liberalism 1.0, and then they did it again like 1. Whatever, like this was the beta. Okay, so then we move into modern liberalism, and I think that they obviously started integrating like social welfare, and I think regulatory measures to prevent monopolies. I think that could have been, I think at the beginning it was like, all right, everybody, like come to our country, trade, and we'll have a great time. But I think over time they realized that their approach to that just kind of imposed monopolies, and they were just kind of being taken advantage of. So modern liberalism was obviously introduced again to address the inequities that come with wealth disparity. And so again, that's things like supporting welfare, like heavy investments in education, healthcare. What do you guys call it? And
Like social
Medicaid.
programs?
Yeah,
Oh,
things
yeah,
like Medicaid,
Medicaid,
essentially.
Social Security, welfare, like all of actually, that debate will be on May 29th with Lumberjack, the Lumberjack guy. He's gonna be talking about Trump's, social programs, so that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, it's all of our social programs like that.
Okay, okay. And so now we're in neoliberalism, where it feels like every incumbent government on the earth is kind of just like throwing their hands up and looking at like, oh, look at this government we inherited. And I mean, it didn't just happen yesterday. It didn't happen in the last 4 to 10 years. Um, but I think neoliberalism, it's like individuality, um, and I think it's more like the globalization lean in some aspects.
Yeah.
But I also think it was like recognizing that in their attempts to address things like monopolization through the first iteration of liberalism, that they ended up essentially just like red taping everything. And so they have this big, like bloated government. So like
Yeah.
essentially neoliberalism was like introduced to try and stop the government from hindering the wealth and the prosperity of its like citizens, I suppose. And then but I think it circumvents a lot of the social progress that we saw in the previous iteration, modern liberalism. And so I think those are obviously some of its biggest critiques. And I think they're
Wait,
quite
what
isolationist
at
in some
what
ways
point
as
do you
well.
think that liberalism could have gone too far or like went a little too hard on taking care of everybody? Because I feel like that's how I look at it, right? Like liberalism just wants to take care of everybody, shield everybody, bubble wrap us all, stuff like that. And like, at what point do you think they could have gone too far?
Um, so in modern liberalism, they were directly like I think a lot of the politics in that time were directly trying to address those inequities. And so when you say like they could have gone too far, I think that's probably possibly when the like if we look at like a government's priority list, most of the time, like a lot of times people only really give a fuck about like economic stuff and like their bottom line. Like in reality, we live in a
Mhm.
quite an individualistic society. And so I think when you look at modern liberalism and you look at the priorities that are being leveled over time, so if it's like racial inequality, later on you obviously have trans people and then like gay rights and things in between. I think that high degree of emphasis on these things that are super important, but also not necessarily super focused on prosperity. I think it's more so getting everyone to the table rather than like improving the table itself, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So I think that sort of like when you have people that have been at the table the whole time, I have to imagine that idea is probably, like they talk about in Canada, one of our conservative politicians, he always calls the last 10 years the lost liberal decade. And so essentially, our Prime Minister Trudeau was really like the woke general almost, and was
Mhm.
focused on, like people kind, like using a straw person, like that sort of mentality.
Mhm.
But like economically and like housing costs, those things like soared under his tenure. So I
Right.
think that's essentially what you're saying. What
Mhm.
To answer your question, I think it's that phenomenon of like,
Right.
all right, now you can be whatever gender you want, but like I'm hungry. Like when am I gonna get paid more? When are my rights
Right.
going to improve?
Almost like
What
the
am I
priorities
yeah.
shifted a little too hard, um, to the individual like that, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that
Okay.
is, and that's definitely like a core criticism. I think that a lot of other systems or system whatever like kind of make of liberalism is that the focus on individuality like erodes whatever the cultural fabric is. Like obviously you would look at like a religious foundation and say um like if that's focused around, I don't know, I'll say community loosely for lack of a better understanding. I think that yeah, focusing on individual rights rather than the collective community could obviously be seen in a negative way.
Right. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So what do you think that the liberal ideology did 100% right and should go harder on, right? So we saw a failure in, priority, like incorrect priorities. What do you think that they have been doing right and they should like focal point in on it and lock in?
I think that obviously making the what do you call it, the separation of powers, I think was obviously like a really good thing. But I think over time we've started to realize that it's not as um robust as we think it is, and how a lot of the things that we take for granted
Mhm.
in the separation of powers, like we're starting to see the weaknesses there. For example, like the Supreme Court being quite partisan in nature over the last like 10 to 15, 20 years in the US. In Canada, they try like, to be honest, I don't know if that's necessarily a fair representation. So I know that there's a lot of politicization in how Supreme Court justices are sent to the Supreme Court, but I feel like they do apply a level of like they're partial or impartial. Impartial. They're
Impartial.
impartial to some degree. Like when it comes to within the context of the law, like they will surprise you on both ends. I think in Canada, like what I've come to understand is our Supreme Court has it like a weird obsession with being impartial, so that like well, it would seem like not upset. It's a good thing. Like I regard it as a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, and that we tend to have more liberal government, so they've been appointed by I think like liberal prime ministers.
Mhm.
But all of this to say essentially that regardless, they take it upon themselves to not apply their own ideology and their rulings, and to look at precedents and like whatever constitutional law, versus like the United States. I feel like there's somehow like you look at somebody who's really conservative and also working in some sort of like judicial role, and they just like they're like, okay, you're favorable to my positions, and they send them, right? So
Mhm.
I think that in one instance, like the when you talk about the separation um or the balances of checks and powers, I think that is obviously like a big, like what were we thinking kind of
Mhm.
moment. And also in Canada we have one where the prime minister just unilaterally appoints senators, and they're
Really?
still like, yeah, unilaterally just picks them, points them. And I think they have, I don't know if they have time limits,
Mhm.
but it would not surprise me if they did not. So
Yeah, I mean, I know we have them here. Like it's I think it's 2 years for one of them. I know House of Representatives and Senators, I think there's like a 2-year, I think. I'm pretty sure it's every 2 years. I don't know.
oh, like
I
where they have to go to an election.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
okay.
you have to be I'm pretty sure it's 2 years, pretty positive. I think, like, the smaller the government gets, like, the shorter the term becomes.
Right.
I could be totally wrong, but I'm pretty positive. Um,
Cool.
so, okay, let's talk about conservatives.
Mhm.
Would you find, any type of conservative ideology that would be to your advantage or has, uh, maybe maintain the government in such a way that you can find to be a positive?
Yeah, I think so. And that would be foreign isolationist policies, not in trade, but in war. But I also think that we're in a unique circumstance where what I've come to understand by the United States is that the Republicans are typically the war hawks. But in this situation, again, it's become politically expedient to kind of take the opposing position there. And so, but I guess the way it's played out in the Trump administration, I don't think they're still pretty war hockey in my opinion. But I like the idea of not having your hands in everything. I think that the government should be prioritizing its constituents and people that pay the salaries and pay into taxes and things. And so I am not big on supporting foreign wars whatsoever. And I think that that opportunity is, you can find that opportunity in different governments. And I think that people should obviously look for those. And I also think that comes from being more of like a pacifistic type person. But with that being said, when it comes to like these really prominent like religious wars that we have, I understand that like we've had governments that have gone in and tried to like hold people's hands or solve and mediate. And so for me to just come up and say like, I don't like wars, wars are bad. Like I understand you're kind of leaving someone out in the cold. So I'm sympathetic to those ideas as well. Like I'm not just saying like if you put me, if you give me the White House tomorrow, I'm pulling out left or like regardless. I'm saying we're out of there. Like I understand there's a lot of nuance there, and you would
Hmm.
still want to like not do what the Afghanistan kind of thing happened. Do you know what I mean? Like that
Right,
that whole thing
right.
is like really embarrassing for the world or even for the West. So
That's fair. What would you say, like, conservatives have done that's just absolutely, like, dumb, stupid, "Why did you do that? Stop it." Bad.
like this whole journey down populism, I think irks me. But I understand because liberalism is so what's the word? Like it's so entrenched.
Mhm.
But again, okay, so here's one thing I want to make. When we talk about conservatism and liberalism, we can talk about the left and the right. But I just want to be really clear that I understand the distinction that like liberalism is like the playground that we're playing on, and we're
Mhm.
moving in a left direction. That's what
Yeah.
we would regard as liberalism. But still playing on the same playground, when we start to move to the right, that's what we regard as conservatism, when it's kind
Right,
of not. You know what I mean? Like, so
right.
the foundational differences between the two, I think, yeah, like the neoliberalism, like cutting red tape, cutting regulations, I'm okay with, but I'm also very pro environment. So that seems like every time they want to cut something, it's like we're gonna kill 100 baby seals or something, and
Oh,
that's
no,
stupid.
not the baby
You know what I
seals.
you know what I mean? Like obviously I'm not making that calculation in my head, but those things do irk me.
Mhm.
And I think that leaving the planet in a way that I would want like my kids to live in it, I think is important to
Without
me.
baby
And
seals?
yeah, and like the other thing that is really, I don't even know how to attribute this. Regulatory like so the I think another argument for doing repealing cutting red tape and regulatory stuff in some circumstances is that when they fuck up, we don't even attack them anyways. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? We don't even enforce the regulations. There are so many different instances or circumstances where you could talk about oil, you could talk about banking, where essentially we're either just bailing them out or we enable them to do it again because we don't come down hard enough. So some of those regulatory
Well,
nonsense, I
we just
think just becomes
send out
ridiculous.
fines,
Sometimes
though,
we
like,
don't follow through. Why do it?
don't we just kick out fines, and essentially fines aren't that hard to pay. Um,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? If you're making money, for instance, like companies that dump into a water outlet somewhere, it's cheaper to just pay the daily fine than it is
Yes.
to, source out how to, dump it properly or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, money talks, but it's not a spanking either. Um, do you feel like we have too many regulatory things in place? I mean, there's a lot of red tape to do anything, but then sometimes I also feel like there's not enough. And I feel like we put all this red tape in the places it doesn't belong, but then not enough red tape in the places that you would expect it to be, like, like food, toxic waste, environmental kind of certain
Mhm.
particular things that actually affect other people. I feel like that should be where most of the red tape, the bigger companies that can afford the lawyers to go through with it, that could afford the time to spare on all of this paperwork and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Whereas, like the individual, like I think of red tape, like a veteran trying to just apply for their benefits. I'll never forget just trying to get my freaking VA ID. It was a headache and a half. And I don't even I'm afraid of when it expires because I'm like, "Oh my god, I don't even know where to go." So
Yeah.
like it is more red tape for the individual who should be able to just like, here's my DD 214, here's my proof of identification, got it, thanks, go. You know, um, you know, are you on the same wavelength as me there, or do you have some disagreement?
I don't know if that's like, okay, I understand the red tape component. I think that may be like a funding thing, possibly. So I
Well,
understand, possibly, I don't
it's like
know.
all of these
That's how I
different
understand it.
agencies, and yeah, the funding. We fund all of these agencies all over the place to regulate this and regulate that, and process this and do that. I mean, that's at least from the American government standpoint, right? Whether it's at a
Yeah.
federal or a state level, so there's red tape everywhere. Um, but then I feel like there's like what you were just kind of referring to, where or like what we were talking about with the waste level. And there's no spankings, right? They could just do it and get away with it, and we don't really come down on anybody, even though we have all of these regulations in place. It's like, why are they not the ones that are kind of, you know, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think I'm in the
Yeah.
same wheelhouse somewhere.
I think the regulatory stuff becomes really problematic when it becomes super incestuous. You have like 10 stops, like 10 like you have a checklist of 10 things that you need to be able to do
Mhm.
before you can open a small business, say, right? And so
Mhm.
it's like, stop here, $400, stop here, $400, stop here, $400. And if we're all just, if these things only exist as a, so for, let's say, for example, the reason for that check mark has been come antiquated over time, and this we have this checklist of all these pre-existing things that used to be matter, right? Like maybe you have to certify your small business to make sure that your people in your business won't get the plague, right?
Mhm.
And it's like that still exists from however long ago, right? And so when we address like red tape, I think if we're addressing things that are antiquated, that's great. But when those protections, I think, just work into the profit incentive of the company, they can never be relied upon or treat like or trustworthy enough to act within the incentive of the actual person and human being. And we've seen this time and time and
Yeah.
time again. I think even things like lead poisoning in the United States,
Right.
when leaded gasoline was profitable and good to do, like all the signs were there. Everyone in and around it were not doing super well, including the person who made it feasible, right? I can't think of his name right now. But there are a lot of studies out there that talk about how lead poisoning, all of these other things has probably, has potentially led to like a significant like IQ drop across the board with like the way that it has impacted the human body, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, like you have to keep that front of mind um, in certain circumstances, and you ask yourself like, why is this so annoying? Sometimes that reason is a good reason, but it's hard
That's
for us to see that.
Yeah, no, I can agree with you there. So what is like the big statement, like what's the big aha moment for the whole liberalism concept? Like what if you could like go out on a hill to die on? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's the populism, but what would be the hill you'd die on for it?
Um, so I think the hill that I would die on is the idea that it's flexible and adaptable. I think that is the key thing. So where tomorrow a bunch of like, let's say like 100 million aliens like land on our planet tomorrow, and they're actually nice and like super helpful, and
Mhm.
they don't want to be regulated to like slavery and all of these other things. Like liberalism would be able to like give these people rights. Obviously people wouldn't like that, but like if they're contributing members to society and there are beneficial things to having them around, and maybe they're pleasant and kind, there is probably no other, what would you call that? Like alternative that would want to integrate, capitalize, and then also like consider the dignity of those things. So
Mhm.
that's a dumb fucking example, but what I'm demonstrating is that flexibility and that adaptability, I think, is so key and important, especially in the age of technology, because technology is consistently and continually starting to like dictate the way that we live our lives. For
Yeah.
example, like the public square of communication is now, for a lot of people, older millennials, that might be Facebook, Twitter, and for younger people, that might be like Twitter, or sorry, TikTok, and other platforms. And so when you consider that, when those rights were considered, they were considered within like talking, writing, all of these other things. But you know, the founding fathers or whatever, they didn't consider that one of the most pervasive abilities for us to communicate would be in 7 to 10 second videos, where but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So you're
How
like,
could
oh,
you
this is
ever
super
predict that? Yeah. How could you ever
yeah.
predict that?
How would they have known, right? And
Yeah.
so I think this consistently, over time, um, I don't think we're good at doing that. Like, I think liberalism is too slow, but there is no alternative situation that wouldn't just kind of want to wipe the board with it, right? Like, oh, this
Mhm.
is too, I think if we use conservatism in more of a traditional sense relative to not in like a neoliberal way, I
Mhm.
think that idea of conservatism would just look at those aliens and like send them back. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so the opportunity cost of to doing that sort of thing, whether it's war, or deporting people is expensive. So, and that's across the border when they're our neighbors. You got to send these motherfuckers back to Mars. It's going to cost a
Well,
bit of
we
money,
might
right?
have that potential, right? I mean, Katy Perry
Yeah.
did it.
But yeah, I would
Oh
say
my
that
goodness.
that would be the number one thing that I think would be that I think that would be a hill I would die on. And then individuality. Again, I understand the criticisms of it, but individual rights and freedoms are super important, and I don't think any other system on earth guarantees them the way that liberalism does.
So, what would be more important? Would it be the the individual rights on a very one-to-one scale, or a country's overall togetherness for
Cohesiveness.
I would say what's the best interest of the society, right? Versus one
Yeah.
person's individual right. Who wins?
Yeah, fair enough. I think that cultural cohesion will insist, well, typically when they typically do. But I think cultural cohesion could still include that sort of idea and that sort of premise. So, for
Hmm.
example, like I'm like really judgmental, but I don't give a shit at the same time. Like that's kind of the personality that I have, right? So I'm
Hmm.
like, if you're doing something and it's not without consideration for others, that's like a big thing for me. If you're doing anything that's inconsiderate, like get the fuck out of here. But if you're doing something and there's a calculation around like consideration for others, you're not hurting anyone, you're not harming anyone, then I
Hmm.
don't give a shit. Like, I don't think enough people mind their own business, right? And so your particular lifestyles, whatever. And so like there's enough people out there like me, then cultural cohesion could really be about not social ostracization, but just like this understanding of difference, right? And so I
Hmm.
think that's kind of been pervasive over the last little while here. But I think populism is what tries to emphasize the more sensational elements of those
Hmm.
differences and makes them like, hey, everybody, look at this, like like that sort of situation I think is obviously going to be preyed upon by whoever's interested it fulfills. So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't
no,
know if
that
that
kind of
answered your
makes
question.
sense. No, I think it does. Something's going on. Is anybody else having like problems on Twitter with the messaging? Like multiple messages have not gone through and it's getting weird. Notifications work, but messages aren't going through.
That is weird.
It's strange. It's weird. I don't know. And it's not working. And this is causing me problems. This is like my lifeline to everybody. Anyways, I apologize. Here's what I'd like to do.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go ahead and drop the link
Mhm.
into the chat. We actually did go. We're gonna be a full hour because we're gonna go through some super chats. So
Oh,
it did get there. It did get there. See, I told you we would. I didn't. I didn't. Open panel dumpster fire. All right, let's do this. And I'm going to throw out a fair warning to all of you dumb motherfuckers. Because I've seen the chat and I'm very proud of my wrenches for managing all you stupid people. If you're coming up just to be a dipshit, don't bother. You will be permanently banned. And I obviously have made a history lately of not tolerating anybody's bullshit anymore because it just gets on my fucking nerves. If you're a useless panelist, go the fuck home. No panel squatting either. Y'all know I don't like that. So Anna grabbing their new membership. Welcome, Anna. Welcome aboard. A rude mud crab coming in with a big 5. Don't shame jars. It's not their fault. Andrew made it look so hard. Yeah, I think the jar thing. Okay, what have you ever had a problem opening jars, Neve?
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like it's usually the smaller ones that require more force. I don't know if that's some weird, I don't know if I'm just intuiting this, but it's something you can't get your well, and then bigger, I suppose, when you can't get your hand on it. Like I had like sauerkraut or something, and it was
Mhm.
like the size of maybe a softball, a bit bigger, and I
Mhm.
could not get that thing off. Like I think I did every little trick in the book, like run it under hot water, whatever. So
Mhm.
there's a certain can out there that yeah. Or
You know,
jar,
just
I should
like
say,
a little
sorry.
tap, tap, tap on a, like if you tap the side, it like gives it just enough little jiggle on the thing. Usually is the
True.
trick. Maybe that's why mine popped off so easily because I did that. And they are already shuffling backstage. We're just going to get through through super chats, and then we'll bring the panel up and have some fun. Mike Ball with the big 5 says, as long as we have COVID boosters, we will have a liberalism. Ah, Mikey. Do you concur?
I don't know. I think the whole I like the whole vaccination thing is a whole topic that I feel like it's TOS and I don't
It
care.
is.
I just don't care.
Wrongful Rage says, here's my last super chat. Be well, be safe, be healthy, and stay blessed. Great listening in last night. Yes, Wrongful Rage joined our
Shout out
voice
Ron for
chat for a
Rage.
little bit just to come and hang out and listen in. They are all piling up backstage, but Gnostic Informant is back there. So graciously, we found a way on X to make it work. So, a Brain Bender's Banter. This lady, I had no idea she had a huge channel. I went and I got curious the other day and went and took a peek, and I was like, oh my gosh, she seems fun.
Nice.
So we're proud you're here, Triple B. Thanks for stopping by again. Mike Ball with the big 5. Win knee for debating this tonight. Yeah, I'll give you credit because this is gonna be a rough one.
I've been getting roasted about this all week by liberals, so I think I know
I
where
thought
this is going.
I was trying to go gentle. I
No,
went
you're good. You're
gentle.
good. No, I know what I signed up for.
That's fair. I feel like everybody that signs up for the Throwdown Thursday, like you, if you don't know, good luck. Nick Brown with the Big 10. Does liberalism eventually lead to hedonism and the destruction of society since everything is permitted?
I recognize hedonism of as the extreme version of individuality. But
Mhm.
again, I think that consideration principle, at least for me, circumvents that to some degree. For example, like it could be the case that my neighbor derives the most value and pleasure. He is at his best when
Mhm.
he's drinking, screaming, playing music at 3 in the morning, but he's doing so without consideration to me. So that again, his hedonistic behavior there would not be permissible in my liberal society because he needs to shut the fuck up.
Damn. I think we're gonna
Yeah,
have a shut the fuck up party one night.
let's do it.
Chance with a big 5. Modern liberalism is postmodern drivel? Drivel? Drivel?
Cool.
I don't is what is that word? I don't know what the fuck that is. Is that a word I haven't seen before?
That's new to
Everything
me too.
it's new to me. Postmodern drive, maybe? Postmodern, whatever. Everything is fluid. Perception shifts further away from what is objective and true, and sanity suffers. Uh yes, is the you got the subjectivity versus objectivity kind of argument built into that.
True, true.
What do you think? Perception shifts further away from what is objective and true, and sanity suffers.
I'm very skeptical of people who make claims to objectivity, and I also am still aware of a lot of the arguments, but I would make the argument in a very ignorant way, but I think that they lack like utility and meaning. So I think like okay, sorry. So when we say objectivity, the people that tend to make the claim that they can ground it, they tend to be religious types. And so their claim to doing so would be, appealing to some sort of religious authority. But I think that, in my opinion, presupposes the existence of a God. And so when you ask them to sort of say, okay, well, how would you substantiate the existence or whatever, all these things, then you get like tag arguments, and there's another one that I'm aware of. And so they seem to be so convoluted and so hard to kind of sink your teeth into that I feel like the average person looking for a justification to the world is not like it's without meaning, in my opinion. Like there's no practical application there. But it is, I mean, that's just my belief. I'm kind of ignorant in that regard. So
that's all right. We all are ignorant to something. I'm ignorant to the world. I live under my little rock. Well, are you ready for the throwdown? They're all lined up backstage waiting to go.
Let's go.
You've got some friends back here, though. I see you, Ryan. I see you, Effigy. But I've got some people that I know are going to get a little rough and tumble. Here we go.
Yo. Hey, Harley Quick. Raging Tomato. I did that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know the rule. Most of you, everyone except for Gnostic. Gnostic, this is your first time here. Just fair warning to you, interruption bad, talky when I talky bad. Overall, we tolerate a lot here, but yeah, don't interrupt the host and don't interrupt other panelists. But I wanted to go ahead and give you the opportunity to say whatever it is you wanted to say, because you were pretty adamant. You were like, I want to get on this panel, and you are muted, by the way. I don't know if that's on purpose or not.
Talking to me?
Yeah, you.
They do flavors. Well, I think it's funny. I'm reading the comments here. And I'm seeing a lot of people like, oh, liberalism is so gay, liberalism is so dumb, everyone hates liberalism. But in reality, liberalism is like this: one member of the family, of the dysfunctional family that has it all together, that everybody all like collectively hates because they're the only person that has it together. Mm-hmm. And liberalism is the air we all breathe in. The reason why we're all talking right now on a panel where you have Orthodox Christians and trans people and fucking whoever the hell's on this panel, all talking and giving their own opinions, is the definition of liberalism. So to hate liberalism is to hate the air you breathe in. It's the society we're all in right now that everyone hates. We pretend to hate it, but we don't realize how much we actually love it. We're all acting. We are all participating in classical liberalism every single day when we give our opinions on the internet.
Okay, all right, that's a statement. Vibe. You look like you. Do you have some pushback on that?
You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
A liberal has muted you, my friend. I'm sorry, we cannot hear you.
You gotta hit that little button.
There we go. Right?
Hey, I know we're still new to this vibe. We got it. We're gonna walk you through this.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what he said, I barely could hear. His mic was so low, and I know I'm like the mic.
I think he's I think he's in a restaurant.
He might be in a bar.
Are you in a
I
bar?
am. I'm in a bar. Yeah.
Let's go.
I'm sorry. Is it that bad? Is it really that bad?
I mean, the background noise. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I kind of got it.
I heard him, but I was
myself as
streaming.
limited as possible. I'll keep it to myself.
Yeah.
Did you hear me at all?
Everybody else shut the fuck up so I can talk to the man. Yes, we can hear what you're saying. Just make sure you mute before you when you're not talking, because it is very distracting in the background. If you have a quieter place you can get to, it might help.
Do you want me to repeat what I said outside real quick?
No. I heard it. Did anybody else hear it? Everybody else heard it. Yeah.
We just think it's cool that you're outside and you're out, living the world, and you're here to fucking argue on the internet. Let's go.
One thing I took away from what he said is that liberalism, by definition, facilitates its criticisms at the same time. So it's like and so it's easy to forget that your ability to do so is predicated on the sorts of things that we like liberals tend to value in society. So
but
100%.
Liberalism is also this that's sort of funny because
really quick.
you don't have to be in a liberal system to have criticism. I think there's great examples in the last decade, Chinese.
I was gonna say, doesn't China not allow any type of criticism whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, you have the specific criticisms of like Tibetan Buddhism culture infiltrating, just like normal Chinese life, but also the politics are that of the central state, right? And so obviously the Uyghur Muslim community in China has been sort of hot button. So you don't have liberalism as we define it in the United States, for better or worse. And there's still all kinds of criticisms that even make their way out into like major news outlets in the West.
Vibe?
You're bringing it back to me. So I actually want to go back to the conversation that you had, the panel with, and I asked, I'm sorry, I apologize. Is it Neve?
Neve.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Eve, but with an M.
And it's liberal. Like, are you liberal or are you not? Right. So this discussion is all around being around liberal, liberty. Sorry. So if you look at that between liberalism and republicanism, right? What are the differences? Small government. Both want the small government.
Are you asking me to tell you those differences?
Yes.
I think the Republican, the Republican establishment, I would regard them as neoliberals. So I would also say they're liberals.
Okay. So we're kind of on the same side here, right?
Pursuit, you got 5 in the back. Sarcastic Saint says, listen, Neve may or may not be a man or a woman or have an Adam's apple. One thing Neve is not is Mel the Furby. Praise be to Jesus Lord. Amen. Chat, be glad about that.
We can agree there.
5 minutes in the back. All right. Pursuit, you didn't even say anything. You got 5 in the back.
Well, I was going to add one addendum, I think, to what Gnostic was saying, and also the general conversation I think we're having right now about like the era of liberalism that we all live in. I think that it's important to acknowledge that there are a lot of people living in America and in Western countries in general who are fundamentally illiberal. They don't like what they see on this panel. They are upset by it, and they express it very disgustingly in the chat, as we've seen throughout this panel. At least since I've been here, I've seen all sorts of crazy shit. These people hate that kind of free expression, and they don't want people to be allowed to express themselves in ways that they see unacceptable. And those people are, unfortunately, a lot of them are in the White House right now. And we should be very, very concerned about these people who don't believe in liberal democracy, and they are trying to shred the norms that we all fundamentally appreciate here. Even those of us who pretend not to, I think a lot of us do care a lot more about this than they might think.
So Coder, there's still
we're gonna miss those things, yeah.
There's still a huge difference between when we think about what repression means, when you have an actual security apparatus, you know, working to silence people's voices, to limit people's access to information. I'm saying in the United States, like as a, you know, you and I are friends on a lot of this Trump attacking the first, you know, the entire Bill of Rights, basically.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I don't know that, you know, from my perspective, I don't think that there's any comparison
well
to what we
if
see
I can
elsewhere.
if I can give an example, since January, over 8,000 government websites, like resources, have been taken down. Over 3,000 data sets have been removed. All from all primarily stemming from an executive order that said remove all references to "quote unquote" gender ideology. You know, I think that it's not quite as extreme. You're right, as like what we might see in China, but it is inarguably a form of censorship, and it is unprecedented in our country, and a lot of people are just happy to see it in the name of being anti-DEI, which they probably don't understand. So yeah.
So just in this context, I would say that, you know, having operational standards for the United States, which I don't agree with, but that is a legal test. That's really different. You know, the comparison would be like, you know, seeing Bernie Sanders getting thrown in jail. You know, those are typically the types of things that I think of when I think of illiberalism. You know, you see opposition politicians arrested. You know, perhaps, you know, you have something that's comparable to like our own sort of like crime environment, you know, when we see mass incarceration in the US. But for political reasons, and still, I still don't think Trump is even touching on what liberalism is in any significant sense. And I think there's an entire like lexicon of vocabulary. There's all types of things that that we have to sort of weigh.
On paper.
Yeah,
he's a neolib, right? And I think that's where a lot of people are torn about the Republican Party, because I think that the focus on moral, or like the detesting of the individuality, we're seeing that in sects of the Republican Party, but the controlling stake of the party, I believe to be quite neoliberal, obviously mixed with that flare of populism that is so pervasive right now. And so that I think is more, I'm curious to know what you guys believe. Like, do you feel like that populism bit is the neoliberalism, or is it more the attack on individual rights and freedoms? Like, is that more of an individualistic lean of the party, or anti-individualism lean of the party? Like the religious people, I guess. Is that clear? Was that a clear question?
Oh, it makes sense. I would need to think about it for you know,
same.
a couple minutes to have.
The rights populism is always in response to changes that they feel are not happening at a pace that they like. Yeah, that's what it always seems to me. It's always something that shouldn't be that way. If you can take modern liberalism all the way back to kind of like the 1960s, civil rights really was the birth of kind of modern liberal thought. And it seems ever since then, it's always just been like, they've been trying to like claw things back that were given, and these things have kind of like come to define the left, right? So it's why we fight so hard for them. One of the points I wanted to make was the same as the first guy who talked, was that liberalism's here to stay because we're all big L liberal. This is a big L liberal democracy. Conservatism's entire point was to conserve the classical liberal principles of the founding. So whenever you see people like starting to like rip away at even that stuff, that's when I feel that they're getting outside of the liberal threshold, and they're doing illiberal things, which is to me not American.
Chance?
And
sorry, I was muted.
I apologize, Nev.
Hold on, Vibe. Go ahead, Chance. Uh-oh. We lost him. All right, back to you, Vibe. Go ahead.
The magic of mobile, folks.
It's how it works.
I totally thought there would be more conservatives up on this thing.
Yeah,
Me
yeah,
too.
I
You know
don't mean-
what? All of the, and I apologize, Vibe. I do. Of all the shit talking in the chat, none of you bitches got big balls.
Conservatives
enough
don't
to
come
get
up here? Are you
get
kidding
your
me?
asses up
There's
here.
no
and
way. Huh.
Either stay or
They
don't.
just
Come
paid to
on.
push me backstage immediately before I say anything. Typical.
Mhm.
No, a
What
lot
were
of
you
this.
saying? Sorry, Vibe.
Oh,
Vibe was
sorry, yeah, let me
talking.
give
These
you
are
Vibe.
everyone else is a liberal here,
Yo,
so
I think Vibe, your mic, you're not using the mic in front of you. You're using your webcam mic, and we can't understand you as well.
We
That's the
tried
problem.
walking him through this before. Vibe. Okay, we're gonna
I
take
gotta
a.
buy
There's literally a mic in front of you.
Okay, click on your settings button in the bottom.
Yeah.
The little
No,
wheel.
I actually have an app that I'm using. I just had to buy a new mic. This mic sucks. That's it.
Okay.
So.
Joseph, you've been backstage, and I keep putting in the back chat that you need to cam up backstage real quick and show me a peace sign. It's not that fucking hard. You do that, and then I'll let you up. But if you don't do that, then I'm not dealing with the whole screening crap. I know there's a bunch of weirdos out there, especially lately, and I'm not gonna put up with it. Either cam up backstage for me real quick, or get the fuck out. Quit bitching.
I want to push back a little bit on Duck, I guess. And I agree that like we're working in like currently within an ethos of big L liberalism. But I really I know people think I'm overstating it a lot, but I think it's really important not to understate the threat to that liberalism that we are currently facing. Because I mean, when we have a president defying Supreme Court justices, defying Supreme Court rulings, and we have him talking about deporting quote unquote homegrowns next, sending people against court orders to prisons overseas. This is something that is and increasingly making it likely that he will start arresting political enemies. I think that if we're not calling out the trend now, then when it does get here, we're not going to be prepared for it, and that's why I'm very vocal about it.
So, Ryan, I think this. Hold on, that was for me. So let me take it real quick. I think this is partially because you're more center, right? You know, and from my perspective, like I can argue either a far left perspective or I can argue like a really conservative, sort of right-leaning perspective, which it doesn't have to make sense because we're on a panel, but you know, one of the things that you're totally missing here is like, you know, if you look at like the left, why does the far left in the United States hate corporations? Why are corporations the enemy? And it's because it's stifling this sense of self. It's not as much about, you know, it still is in some sense, but it's not, you know, Monday through Friday isn't about the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's not about having 10,000 racists gathering in Charlottesville, even though those are important things that we should think about. You know, the far left really dislikes, you know, states like governments like the Russian Federation, Iran, because they have actual codified laws that are even they're 80 years back, they're 100 years back from what we think of as a liberal government. So there's no way to reconcile even like left-leaning ideas about individual freedoms and rights with how the rest of the world operates. And yeah, Saint wants me gone, so I gotta go. But I'm gonna talk
all right. I was
about
gonna let you finish your thought.
That was the end of my thought was just that, yeah, I mean, this is one of those cases where it's useful to actually know what Marx said, even if you're not a Marxist, because, you know, Marx would say that life can be 100 times worse than you think it is. And those are things that impact people that are like you. So just go find those stories and you can see why Donald Trump having a field day, you know, taking his little MAGA kids out for ice cream or whatever it is, you know, that's not a threat to liberalism, not really, and not ever.
So before you go, Duck, are you a Marxist?
I'm fluent. I'm pretty fluent in the philosophy. I would say politically, you know, I'm a little more. I would define myself as conservative, sort of center-left progressive. Ryan and I agree on a lot of stuff, to be completely honest. I think Neve and I agree on a lot of stuff, to be completely honest. Same with Effigy.
I just think you're annoying, so I never hear what you say.
Yeah, we're not good friends, but I'm very sympathetic compassionate, and I believe there's both intellectual and political push for further left thinking in the modern era, and I believe that's all foundational. That's it. Oh shit, you're gonna kick me before Emmett gets here?
World, right?
That is not fair. All right, I got beef with Saint now if Emmett's coming up.
Well, Sarcastic
And
Saint
cleaner.
says, Ryan, when you get that money from Andrew for the tooth, will you please do something about your bed hair? Give Duck money for a beard trim. Duck, 5 in the back. All right.
And by the way,
I like my
Ryan's
bed head.
new
I don't know.
hair looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's
I
anything wrong with it.
I think you kind of look like Kirk from
trim.
Tarzan.
Yeah.
I can use a
It's
trim,
like
but I
the-
don't know.
the
It's
hair
a,
shape,
it's a
head
choice.
shape.
I do need to cut it a little bit, but I think I'm rocking it all right. I appreciate
And
it.
logistics, Joseph in the back. I've said this 100 times. You need to cam up backstage before I can let you on. Either do that or get out of my hair. All right,
I
back
have
to you.
a really fast take. And it's real easy. I think liberalism is like herpes, and it's here to stay. And it sucks, but it's here to stay. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's just like herpes.
I really hear him.
He said it's like herpes.
This is why is liberalism so why is it everywhere and why is it here to stay, right? And I think it's real simple to understand. The reason is because it's about freedom, it's about liberty, it's about understanding that we do have rights that, you know, a lot of people say are divine, God-given, whatever you want to say, but the whole point is that we do have these rights. We're born with these rights. Do they go through different phases? Yes, of course. But here in the West, if you find yourself being a person that does believe in rights, you are a liberal. I'm sorry to tell you, you know, bad news, my friends. You're a fucking liberal, and it's really sad to see so many people try to fight against that. And the reason, okay, go ahead. What?
Listen, I don't believe in rights. It's okay. It's all about power. But the real reason why it's never going away is because you're a bunch of degenerates. So it's
Hablas
like
español? Yo creo que es latino, ¿verdad?
Nobody is going to get rid of it. Yes, I'm Latino. ¿También hablo español? ¿Hablas español?
Sí, claro que sí. ¿Quieres saber por qué no puedes hablar español también?
¿Quieres saber por qué?
Hello, this is America. We
I'm
speak
sorry.
English
This is an English one, guys. Sorry.
Do
Go
you
ahead.
speak
To
it?
get the full gravity of your worldview, is it leave my stuff alone? Is that
Sorry,
the full gravity
liberalism
of it?
means only.
Is it not?
Oh God.
I mean, the reality is really, I mean, ultimately, right? When we're talking about liberalism and republicanism, they're almost.
What
the
is
same,
republicanism?
Right?
What is that? I don't. Are you talking about like as in a republic, as in representatives elected?
Okay, so we have Republicans, we have Democrats, right?
No, my friend. Are you saying that
Okay, my friend,
Republicans
tell me.
are? I'm telling you.
They're for less government, right?
Real quick, I'm out of here. So I
That's
just want
trying to get around saying conservatism.
Okay, see ya, Emmett.
And let's bring it back to
Adios, amigo.
Liberalism. Have a good one.
Ciao.
So is the prompt, if I'm understanding correctly, the prompt is just liberalism is here to stay, right?
That is correct.
Not that it's actually going to be of any consequence or anything, but even 1% of something that survives would be still staying, right? So I mean, even if we eradicated almost all of liberals and there was just like, I don't know, 5 pagans left, it would still be here, right?
No, we would.
He sussed out the bait. He sussed out the bait.
No, that's
That
a little
is the
silly,
debate.
right?
He's on to
Because-
us. He's on to us.
No, come on. Because like feudalism still technically is around, but we do not talk about how feudalism is still around, right? Like that's not a real system that we still believe in. No one.
That's not
no
what
one,
he's saying.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I think you completely misunderstood. Nev might have caught it.
I know what you're saying because I
think
recognize
this
that.
conversation is actually more speaking to the spirit of the sentence, not so much whether or not it'll actually be 5 people at the end of liberalism that's still here, right? Like you're not saying that, you know, it's only going to be a small pervasion of people that are there, but it'll survive, right? You're not saying it's going to survive. You're saying it's a good thing, right?
I'm saying it persists and it's pervasive.
Right. Well, and so
it will
what I'm
continue
trying to
to
understand
persist.
is,
And so,
like,
sorry, can I tell you what I was actually, because I don't know if you were here when
sure,
you were
go ahead.
watching at the beginning, but what I understand that the concept is so nebulous and the term is so nebulous. So at the very beginning, I think what I posed was that I'm interested in having people communicate alternatives, right? Because the idea that it's
Right.
possessed, like, yeah, so that's a conversation. I think that's an angle. But discussing the semantic differences between, you know, what is neoliberalism, what is whatever modern liberalism, what is actually democratic, what is actually Republican, like all these things are just like not interesting to me. But I think the alternative piece, I think, is interesting.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to speak about liberalism itself since that was the topic, right? Like my question to you would be, like, if we are to go along with liberalism, what we need to have is something that shows a pervasion from liberalism of a net positive for our society as a whole, for everyone to go along with it. And that's what we'll have to see. Otherwise, you will always have infighting within liberalism itself. You will have people fighting each other, and you will also be fought by people who are all of one mind in religions. So
you would. So you're advocating for some sort of like cultural cohesion?
I'm not advocating for anything. I'm presenting you with a premise and then asking you a question based upon that premise and understanding of reality and how the real world works. So my question is, what is it in liberalism that gives us a higher net positive than, I don't know, let's say like the prescriptions of Orthodox Christianity?
Well, I think that the separation of church and state, but is one thing that I think people will use to justify.
Have that in both.
Religion doesn't provide government.
Yeah, I'll just finish my point. So one of the things I think that is overlooked when you talk about that is that liberalism actually facilitates different kinds of religions, but it also facilitates in a peaceful way the different denominations. Because I think contextually, when we look at our ideas and you say to us, like, you know, you're liberal or whatever, you don't have any grounding cause that, you know, therefore, like my preferences, whatever, all of that's subjective. The reality of the situation is, yeah, you can find some cohesion with people who are Christian, but you're going to be in that same set of circumstances with different denominations and different religious practice. So I think that is one thing that is understated about liberalism, is that we allow, we tolerate different renditions of religion, and we do not subject them to one another, and we do not pit them against one another as like, this is the true one, this is the true one. We remove the need to do that because we facilitate churches, mosques, different areas of society that allows people to build communities around their individualistic beliefs, even if it's religion.
I think he's asking like, if there's something good that comes out of that, right? And I think that
is a good thing, because I think it's mutually beneficial.
I agree. It's a good thing.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily a good thing, because within religions there will be fighting between the religions.
Yeah,
so
liberalism removes that, right? That's
no, liberalism doesn't remove that.
Yes,
that will still be there.
No,
it doesn't.
That's not true.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't
remove it.
Just a big shout out to
Doesn't
Jess
permit it.
Gerald with the Big Ten. I'm sorry, but if liberalism is herpes, everyone hates when it's here and relieved when it disappears. And Sarcastic Saint, classic liberalism is what you were talking about, and not today's liberalism, you fool. Pursuit. 5 minutes in the back and go where it's done.
He's wrong. He's
They
incorrect.
hate you. Why do they hate you so much?
Well, he sets himself up for it.
I was just going to say that one of the things we can point to of like a good result of liberalism, including the things that Neve correctly identified, is if you're an American, you live in the richest, strongest nation in the world. And we've been a fundamentally liberal society for a very long time. And it's clearly working decently well for us. If you believe, whatever MAGA news puts out every day, then you might think that things are falling apart, that the Haitians are eating the cats and the dogs, that everybody's dying on the street. But in reality, we actually are a pretty comfy society, and everyone sitting here having this conversation is evidence of that, of how comfy we all are and how much we can sit here and bitch about things in our comfort.
Well, see, that's kind of a conflation of topics. You're talking about, because we're sitting here on the internet, this thing that was built by people, that it necessarily means that liberalism is good in some way. And I don't see the tangent there. I don't see the connector. I don't even see that as a coalition factor, like a collating factor. It's not even like slightly, not even close. That's a factor of human beings and what human beings created. That doesn't necessarily mean anything about liberalism. And so I'm going to have to ask again, because the two things you mentioned are things that have existed throughout all of time and space, even like the historic times, from what we can find in history records, where there have been different tribes that believe differently and they coexisted. Some did, some didn't. Obviously, there's always been, the a-holes out there that have caused war, right? And, always bad people that have done bad things. So I'm not going to say that, liberalism is alone in that, or that a religion specifically is alone in that, or anything like that. I wouldn't make a ridiculous claim like that. What I'm asking you is for a general understanding that most people have, right? It's this general understanding of what is the net positive for society, i.e. what most people would say is good, right? If we're all prospering, things like that. And you haven't really answered my question in any way, shape, or form as to giving me a net positive that liberalism has over every other religion out there.
Well, I don't think.
Well, I don't think. I think it would be fallacious to compare it to a religious doctrine, right? I don't think there's any sensical reason to do that.
You brought religion into it with the separation. Yeah, you did bring religion into it. So let's step away from religion then.
Well,
let's step completely away from religion,
and let's say is because you were talking about the idea of cultural cohesion.
Right.
You weren't saying it explicitly.
And see, I'm not talking about their belief in God.
Okay,
I'm only talking about
who are
their
the people in
prescriptions.
Society that tend to advocate for cultural cohesion? Who are the people in society that have a tendency to do that?
The religious.
Okay, thank you. So it seems like it's relevant.
No, I still don't see how it's relevant, because without liberalism, we still had that.
Went over your head, I suppose. I would disagree. I would disagree.
Actually going over your head.
No, I think I would
disagree. The question is very simple. It is what unique factor does liberalism offer that the prescriptions from religions do not?
Cohesion outside of that.
Because we have cohesion within the religions.
I don't think so. I don't think you do. I think you do, but I don't think you do.
No, if you take the same things that liberalism has, the a-holes that actually hurt people, right? You take all of that out. There is none of that within the religions. So I don't see this as a net positive.
I watch
liberalism has
quite a few,
on its own.
I don't know. I think a recurring theme or a recurring trend is that the fighting secularists or fighting liberals for religious people is the easy thing to do. The hard thing to do is to get everyone on the same track as it relates to Christianity, Jesus Christ, or the opposing religions, the other religions that are in the mix, right? The different denominations. But I think in that certain set of circumstances, no, the cohesion is actually through the liberalism that promotes and tolerates the differences and limits your ability to oppose and to obviously direct violence at the what you would regard as possibly the lesser denoms, or maybe the what do they call it? You guys call them the heretical religions or whatever, right?
I'm not even talking about what I would personally prescribe or anything like that. I'm simply asking you for just one simple thing that is a net positive that liberalism has over any religious prescription. No, you're actually
literally just did.
You're not.
You're
we facilitate.
See, the thing is, you keep
the differences that you actually are not able.
You're beating a dead horse.
You keep throwing out this word salad, and I just want to know if there's a good thing in it that religions don't have in their moral prescription for the world and how they should live. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep saying cohesion, but we've had cohesion between the religions before in the past, so there's no reason to believe that we can't have it again in some capacity. There's no reason to believe that we will or won't in either direction. I'm asking you for something that liberalism realistically gives us that the religions do not.
Yeah, it
I'm not asking a ridiculous question.
No, and I've answered it multiple times. I think it facilitates cohesions by allowing different religions to coexist amongst each other, because we know. I think
religions do that anyway. The religions do that anyway.
They probably don't. I don't think they.
Well, no, without the radicals.
Actually.
Okay,
I don't know.
okay. You could say the same thing about like the Democrats and Republicans, right? But the point is,
I could, but I'm not going to because that's not the point that I'm trying to make.
Right? No, I'm using it as an analogy. You know what an analogy is, right? It's where you compare two things figuratively.
Can you explain it? Can you explain it to the panel in a way that we can all understand it?
Within the left and the right of the government, you do have radicals that cause problems, that do harm, that'll go out and red rum people, that, you know, all kinds of nasty things, right? Okay, that's the same thing in religions, the same thing in liberalism, the same thing everywhere in the world. So I'm not speaking about those sects of people, the extremes, the outliers, right? We're talking about the religion's prescriptions. No, I'm not. I'm not speaking to all of those. I'm speaking to the religion's prescriptions. Oh, okay. And I'm wanting to know, within liberalism, what does it have that is a better prescription for how we should live our life? Any one thing that religions do not already have, because within religions there is already cohesion. There already is allowance for other religions to be there. Hell, there's even towns that have had 4 or 5 major religions in them, and people live peacefully with no problem, but there's no liberalism there. It's just, you know, so I don't, the thing is, I'm not seeing how liberalism specifically gives us a net positive that we don't already have with religious prescriptions.
Oh, well, that's an interesting thing that you're positing, but I think that when you're talking about the religious perspective there, I think that the inability to adapt to the modernities of like society, the things that sort of you know, emerge through emerging technologies or like you know, whatever sort of differences, you being bound to whatever sort of set of circumstances puts you as a significant disadvantage, I think, when there are people who are willing to like look at an issue or look at a problem and you know, be able to apply more nuance and be able to apply a working understanding, like science, for example, rather than to just say, okay, 7th commandment says we don't do this, so we don't do this, right? Despite opportunity cost, despite suffering, I don't know. I think it's a solution. I don't know, if you look at like the 10 commandments or whatever, you could look at it as like an easy solution to society, you know, something that's consistent or whatever, or you could look at it as like something that's limiting and something that ignores opportunity cost and suffering.
You're basically saying a bunch of word salad and prattle bullshit, but you're not actually giving me anything that isn't within moral prescriptions. Like, you can pick a specific religion and say this one says.
It's almost like a secular person wouldn't feel the inclination to make a moral.
There's one religion that says no science. There's another one that says
Sir, why are we?
Cool.
Why are we talking about religion when we're talking about liberalism? In terms of understanding,
I brought it up. I brought it up. Yeah, I brought it up.
I think it's fine. I think it would fall into that degree, you know, in a variation of it. You know what I mean?
Okay, earlier he said that there was cohesions of religions in the past. Where and when are you talking about, sir?
I think he's talking about
the where and when would you espouse that there is?
Well, they have no issues.
Right, sure.
They just love each other.
Granted, there has been violence between peoples of all different cultures, all different ethnicities, all different races, all different genders. Both genders, all different religions. Yeah, there have been problems in them.
Why did you say that earlier?
There have also
Why did you say that as a point towards?
It also seems to be the only thing that persists over time.
There have also been cohesive times.
Hold on, you're
there have
both
also been
talking
cohesive
and I
times.
can't hear anything.
If you ask me the question, I'm going to answer it. If you want to hear the answer, I'll give it. If you don't want to hear the answer, that's fine.
You're not saying you're saying a word salad, sir. I'm asking for a specific.
No, I gave you specifics,
sir. You did not. What country? What place? What era?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's general understanding.
I thought you were talking about specifics.
Yeah,
you're just talking in generalities. So it doesn't mean anything. You can't get
into the one or two specifics of historical times when we had cohesion between religions, or
literally said this,
cohesion between religions. I'm asking on what she's talking about from her worldview, liberalism, how it gives us a better net positive in any way, shape, or form than the prescriptions that we already have in religions.
What prescription would you give? Because you gave it as an example that there were times in history. Excuse me, sir. I'll let you speak. Let me ask my question. I'm sorry that.
I thought you were at the end of it.
I'm sorry,
Go
my
ahead.
question's getting in front of your interruption. So my question is, you were talking earlier about the fact that you have, in your mind, obviously, a certain era, a certain time, a certain
I don't.
place. Why are you talking about then cohesion between religions? And that liberalism is not needed for that.
I don't need to have a specific time.
Yes, you do. Yes,
the thing is,
because we can give examples where liberalism today does have cohesion between religions. Correct? We can have practicing Jews.
I'm not disputing that.
Practicing. Oh, you don't dispute that. So why
I'm disputing that at times liberalism is cohesive with other parts of society. What I'm asking is, what is the net positive that liberalism will give the world that religions aren't already prescribing?
To have the cohesion between different groups of
the
people.
religions already prescribe that.
That's not. I'm sorry, sir, but obviously they don't practice what they preach. That's the issue, isn't it?
They don't always, and liberalism doesn't always either. That's why
no, that's incorrect, sir. I'm sorry, sir. You just gave me. You are already self-defeating your own premise. You're self-defeating your own premise, sir.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you for a.
Are we in a liberalized society in the United States?
Other
we have liberalism in the United
prescriptions
States,
don't add.
I have a question for you. Do we have a liberalized society in the United States today?
Like a chunk of society is liberals?
No. I'm asking you, do we have liberalism in the United States today? Yes or no?
Yeah, there's groups that are liberals in the United States today, yes.
No, it's not just groups, sir. I'm not just talking about that.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay,
no, it's
already. It's all right. It's all right. You're already self-defeating. It's fine. I know it's embarrassing.
You want to ask a question?
What do you want to say? What do you want to
question?
Say? Gotcha.
Right. I want to know still, what is something that liberalism provides for society as a prescription for how we should live our life that's a net positive that some of the religions do not already give us as a prescription
living with other people. Living with other people that are not
religions already do that. Religions already do that. Yes, they do.
They don't practice it, do they?
Yes, they do.
No, they don't, sir.
This is a general understanding.
My friend,
there are literally people living right next to each other of different religions.
This is going to be the second time I'm going to ask you. I will ask you for a second time. Give me an example of a place and time where a religion or a place that has a certain religious group that is overwhelming over others that does practice exactly what they preach, as you prescribe that other religions do say. And then I will concede the point.
Time in history where someone has practiced what they preached.
Yes, correct. Because you're talking about how I'm saying that liberalism does provide it. Jesus Christ did not.
Let's move on to my question.
Jesus Christ did not control the government.
Asking you my question. You're still not giving me an answer.
Did Christianity happen during Jesus Christ?
Here's the thing that you guys are misunderstanding. I'm not arguing that any of the religions is better. All I'm asking for, so that you can convince the world that liberalism is the way to go, I'm asking you, what does liberalism give the world that's a net positive more so than the religion?
And I'm answering the question with the fact that having different religious groups being able to coexist together is what liberalism is able to provide. You are trying to ignore that, my friend. I'm sorry that you don't want to ignore that. Yes, you are.
Listen, no.
Can you accept it? Can you accept it?
Granted that liberalism provides that, but so have the religions. I'm asking you for something.
Where and when, my friend? Where and when? I'm asking you, where and when? Where and when does do other religions provide that?
So let me do what you're doing right now. So are you saying that religions have never provided any cohesion between each other? Are you saying that religions have never provided any kind of cohesion between each other? Is that what you're saying right now?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Never in all human history.
I will tell you.
Happened. That's what you're saying.
Sir, because we can look at
this. How ridiculously wrong you are.
Do you want me to give you examples?
Because you do realize how ridiculously wrong you are. You can look at any town in America, people of all different religions that are in those towns that are living.
I'm sorry, my answer is interrupting you, sir.
You're actually being completely ridiculous.
So, sir,
you have no understanding of reality.
I absolutely do, and I'm giving you historical examples. So during the time of the Muslim conquest, they took over groups of in the Middle East, Christians and Jews. They did not give them any sort of equal rights to those places. They had to pay more taxes. They had to absolutely subjugate themselves to the rule of the Islamic conquest. Let's not even talk about those places. Let's talk about it in Christian societies. We can talk about that during the medieval times.
I'm willing to make this
Well,
point. I'm willing to concede here. I'm willing to concede here.
We actually don't have to talk about anything. Pursuit, you got 10 minutes, and
sorry,
you got
hurt you
10
guys.
minutes. You got 20 minutes backstage.
See you later.
And then also, hold on, just bear with me for a moment. I was kind of like holding on to that. Oh, hold on, let me set this timer. All right, there we go. And then, well, let me read them. 10 more minutes of shadows for Pursuit for no reason in particular. Sarcastic Saint says, I'm sorry, Sir Pursuit. We don't interrupt others when they are trying to talk to someone else. You interrupted Neve and Cleaner 409 many times. And let me interject a little, shut the fuck up. And then Jess says, make it 20 for Pursuit for being all in the argument.
Okay. I'm willing to wait, hold on. I just want to, so we can get past this point. I'm willing to concede here. Obviously the liberalism has stated goals of, freedoms they grant to religions so that we can all coexist, the religious and the non-religious. And of course, religious societies exist peacefully in the world and have never killed each other over semantic differences. They're like this. Religious people, Islam, Christian, they're all besties. Okay. So let's.
I would say never killed each other. It's being ridiculous.
Whoa!
I have special knowledge to share.
Like if you're saying,
we all know you're special, but I don't want to hear it. I want to hear
knowledge
Cleaner.
Yeah, if you're saying that religions have never killed anyone because of their differences, you're being ridiculous. I don't think you're an objective reality. And I understand that there are bad people in every sect of society that do bad things.
Can somebody direct this man to sarcasm?
I'm gonna approach you.
Are you familiar with sarcasm, sir?
I'm gonna approach you.
Are you familiar with sarcasm? Do you know what that means?
Yes, but I don't know you, so I can't really tell when you're being sarcastic. So
fair point. Sarcastic point. Sarcastic concession, so we can move past this point.
Hold the fuck up. Settle down. Okay, Neve is just conceding, so we can move the fuck on. To move
past this, yes, because it doesn't fucking matter.
And I apologize. Jess sent 25. He said, I'm just kidding. Bring Pursuit back. But Kissy Cat said 10, just for being a meanie. So you're back there for 10, Pursuit.
So I'm totally down to let us move off this point, but I just wanted to give a succinct answer to the question because I think there is one, and I think we were dancing around it. But the answer is liberalism pioneered the legal disempowerment of religion in government affairs. Okay, so it specifically allows freedom from religion, not just freedom.
Please stop with the interruptions.
Okay, that's it. It's freedom from religion, not just freedom of religion. That's the answer. We can move on. You don't have to like that answer. That is the answer. Okay.
Well, Ryan,
the entire backstory on the movement against liberalism, against
completely understand.
Your mic is trash.
Hold on. Yeah, Joseph, go fix your mic. Cleaner, what were you saying?
Ryan, I understand your argument, and I wouldn't say that you're completely wrong in it either. All right. What I'm saying though is like the way that you're encompassing this isn't 100% correct. You can say that there are parts of it that are like this, but it's not the whole. And I'm not even talking about like the extremists and the outliers. Okay. You can't approach it in rationality the same way that you could with like the prescriptions that are given from a religion. You could say that, yeah, all right, so the state divorced religion in some way because liberals said blah blah blah, but that's not really 100% a net positive for everyone in the world. You see what I'm saying? What I'm saying is I just wanted to see a net positive. So instead of the positives, let's go away from that, because if Nev had said something like liberalism doesn't really provide anything that religion doesn't already prescribe, I would say, okay, that's fair. That's what I would say.
Begged your question for you. Yeah, I think that probably we would have agreed. Hey.
And then I would ask you next, because this is the way we determine what's best for society. I would say, okay, well then, which of the prescriptions has the most amount of net negative for society?
Well, I say what has negativity on Poor Pursuit. Jess tried to bring him back, and Kissy Cat said, "Fuck no, leave him back there."
I love that Pursuit's getting the jabs that I would normally be getting. So
Yeah,
thanks for
It's funny because he's like a
Appreciate
better
it.
panelist than all of us too, which is just
Yeah.
funny. Like everyone.
I
except
really
me
do think
and
we
me
should
and
try to move
Twitter.
on though. I
Gerald
think
is
we're going to get stuck on this point.
crazy.
But
Oh no!
it's an
Wait,
interesting
I
topic,
think he's
but-
coming back. We'll see. We'll see.
So what I love about this debate here is that liberalism and republicanism is almost
Republicanism.
identical. And
What
I
is
want to hear
republicanism?
somebody.
Yeah, why do you keep using that word?
That's not a word.
Yeah, I want to hear somebody debate
the
outside
word
of that, right?
republicanism.
Republican, right?
What do you mean?
I'm a Republican.
Okay, you're a Republican, so you just
And
made it a
now
term that it's
liberalism.
republicanism.
But
that the
a
fact that
party
you're
is
a
not an
Republican,
ideology,
like-
right?
No,
I'm a
no.
Democrat. I'm a
Tell me
democracy.
how that is different from liberalism.
You can be an asshole to the guy, or you can approach him in the spirit of the question.
I like
You know.
being an asshole. I'm gonna
Tell me
stick with
that.
that one. I'm gonna
Tell me
stick
how
with
they're
that one.
different. How are they
See
different?
that?
Sorry, Pursuit. Just said
Pursuit.
no. He was fighting for you to come back on,
This
and
is
then
about
he's
to
like,
get
you know what? Fuck
expensive.
it.
Nev,
Can anybody tell me?
Okay.
Nev,
Yeah.
you probably should not have Pursuit backing you
yeah,
up if
I
you
can-
want your cause to move forward.
Look, no,
So
okay,
I can
that's why I
absolutely tell you
conceded.
five-
That's why I conceded there after your 1v1, because yeah, I mean,
I just, yeah, like
Yeah,
Can I
I
get
know.
Vibes' answer?
I'm really
Question,
like
guys?
I really
I've-
look at the whole world and the way that we're doing things as what can give us the best positives and the least
Yes.
negatives, you know?
for sure.
And I mean, if
Yeah.
liberalism can provide that, then I'd like to
Yeah.
understand how.
For
But
sure.
I've never had anyone who could actually show me
Mhm.
how liberalism would provide more net positives than
Yeah.
some of our religions do, and yet no net negatives, or
I think the
you know,
I think
or
your
minimal.
question,
right?
yeah, you've been gish galloping about this for the last 5 minutes. I think baked into your question is this necessity of some sort of like objective morality, right? So that's
Right.
baked into your question. And I think that as a
No.
secular human being,
More
and somebody who,
social
who values
construct.
individual rights, like why would I care about that, right? Like why would I care about your need to find that sort of particular solution? Even in the context of this conversation, it's like you're one you know person, right? Like who cares? Oh, actually, wait. No, maybe it is important that we figure this out, because again, secular people are individuals. We all have preferences, but religious people are monoliths. So I actually could learn a lot.
I'm
from
not
you.
arguing this from a point of religion. To be clear, okay? I'm arguing this from the point of the secularist who believes that all morals are nothing but a social construction. And I'm asking you,
Oh, is that my
what,
position?
what does no? That's
Did
the
I say
position I'm
that?
taking
Oh, so
right
why
now.
are we fighting? Why are we fighting on that?
Because I'm asking you questions from the secular mind. I'm asking you questions
You're
that
doing
are
it.
fair.
You're doing a bad job.
They
You're
will-
doing your bad
they will
job
ask
because
you
your
that. Will ask you
questions
that.
are baked in. No, your questions
No,
bake
I'm
in
not
the
baking
necessity.
anything in. I'm literally
Yes, no,
not
your
baking
questions
anything into my
baked
questions.
into your
I'm not baking
questions.
necessity. I'm not baking any
Has
of
the
that.
necessity for
Even
objective
giving
morality. Yes.
caveats.
So you're doing a bad job of the secular.
I'm even giving
view.
caveats. All right.
Okay.
No. Most secularists that I know would say that our morals and our religions are based upon our preferences, are nothing but a construction of the mind, which is a social construction. So, I mean, I get that you don't like that term, and I'm not trying to like cause a problem or
I
a
just
fight here.
don't.
I'm
care
asking you.
what you're- I just-
well,
I don't
and this
care.
is the thing, though.
It's
This is
just
what
quite
people actually
clear.
care about. Like, if you
Yeah.
want your
Yeah.
if you want your worldview to go forward, and for people to listen to it, you need to show them more net positives, less net negatives for society.
My
This is what you
worldview
need to
will
show them.
persist. My worldview will persist by virtue of religious imposition. You guys create more liberals than you will ever understand, and I think through that nature,
I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Yeah.
Don't you
Well,
don't
I
you
don't
think
necessarily
that
disagree with you on that.
This
I
whole
still don't
conversation is really
see-
weird, Cleaner. It's
I
like
still
you're
don't
being
see what that
completely
has to
ignorant
do.
to all the evils that religions have done to like
No, I'm
everyone
not.
and each other.
I'm not.
Yeah, no, you are, because
I
you're
don't
not
even care
accepting
about
the fact
I
that
don't even care
liberalism
about
is
the
the thing that allows
evils
for
that
freedom of thought and expression
liberalism
and
or
personal autonomy that
democracy
allows
or
between them.
republicanism or I don't care about the evils that any of them have done. When we're talking about prescriptions, I'm not talking about what they have done to each other. I'm talking about the actual prescriptions for how people should live in a society.
Yes,
All right?
yes. We know you want to drag this conversation into moral oughts, and you want to have your little circle jerk.
I'm not even
around that
talking about
topic.
morals.
I'm saying we're subjecting it. You kind of are. You kind of are. Yeah, you kind of are.
Positive,
Whether
net
you believe
negative
it or
is
not.
not morals.
All right,
Whether
shut
whether
up.
you believe it or not, you are.
Andy,
I don't.
do you have
Yeah, I'm just
something to
curious
add?
why Cleaner's point is being dismissed so easily. Like I do think. So you want to make it
It's
about
just a
objective
dumb
morality?
fucking
That's
point, dude.
fine.
Shut up,
I don't
Doug.
think it is, because there's a totally different view of the world that both of them are bringing to the table, right? On the one hand, you have the liberalism, right, grounding order, the moral order in the free individual, the autonomous individual. That's fine, right? I'm not saying one or the other is right, but then on the other ground, you have this objective moral order, but that matters for how you structure society. That's like the most important thing for how you structure society. So Cleaner could just come back and say, why should I care about your autonomous source of moral order, right? Like you could just throw the same objection right back at you guys. So it's just strange to me that that's just being dismissed so easily.
Yeah, because I think that
kind of
the
agree.
religious side of the argument, I think, would value those things. I just don't.
So
Well,
I
and
think
that's why-
consideration just isn't
Wait, hold
valuable
on.
to-
You don't value whether or not there's a common good.
No, because I think that concept is flawed.
That's
before I go to
why
that,
would you
can I say one
value
thing,
that?
sir?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. I knew you wanted to add in on that.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing, we're circling around it. Like one of the benefits of liberalism is that not everyone in the liberal society agrees on what that common good looks like. And yet it makes room for us all to have our preferences of what a common good is and vote on those things. And, within, as long as when we're not imposing those on other people, like we are allowed to express them, right? And that's a fundamental good thing about liberalism that, again, is pioneered by liberalism and doesn't really exist in countries or governments where religion is the doctrine of the land. But yeah, I'll see you all in 5 minutes, and I'll bring Umbriel.
Yeah, so I think, Andy, you're seeing the world through rose-tinted glasses, which is cool. But
I don't think
republicanism.
He asked a question.
I'm answering the question if you listen. So republicanism, if you take it all the way back, whatever it is, more than 2,000 years, when we've had sort of this conception of common good, of citizenship tied to a state, a society, and it's all one thing. That's what republicanism actually is. And so you still have wars in Europe where Republicans send 100,000 people to go fight and 100,000 people die. And so, if you start picking apart these examples where a common good isn't how a person thinks, they should be thinking about stuff a little bit in that collective mindset, but we're not a totality. You start seeing why liberalism is actually required in the real world. The sort of magicality that you ultimately get out of it is that you're able to simultaneously build democracies, which both republicanism and liberalism does, but you also get this restorative justice component, where and for example, like in Chile, you both have you're actually counting dead bodies in locations where Pinochet tortured and murdered people. You also have entirely new laws to protect indigenous people that were especially subjected to that. Republicanism doesn't think in precisely that same light. Liberalism does. I don't think there's anything optimistic about republicanism. I think it's a great baseline. It's great to take to your community, but it's not an effective political ideology.
I don't know what you mean by republicanism, but I wanted to point out what you said. You're kind of begging the question for your view, because you said that the common good is a psychological state, essentially. That's not the idea that we're talking about when a religious person says the common good, right? They're saying that the human individuals or the human kind is the kind of thing that is oriented toward a good, and there's particular goods, right? And so one would be a natural order to health, or to to food or drink or something like that, right? And there are more goods than those natural goods, is the idea. So it's not just a
Okay.
state of mind.
Yeah,
shout
yeah.
out to,
I don't see what's
hold on
political
just a
about that,
second,
sorry.
Doc. Shout out to Gestural with a big 20 says, have a good night, Sarah. Tell Pursuit to get a fire going. He'll be back there another 20. Pursuit, I've got a total of 31 minutes on the clock for you now. Vibe, do you need to head out? Would you like to just give a goodbye, or are you coming back?
I'd love to come back. We'll see if we can, but I have to put the kids to bed. So I love you guys. I have a lot of things to say, but got to take care of the kids first.
Stay safe.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, if trying to put kids to bed, you do need to stay safe. And
Thank you.
speaking of Pursuit, you just
How
got to
long is
keep
that band?
quiet. Now you're up to a total of 50 minutes backstage because that 20 added onto your 30, as long as I'm mathing correctly, is 50. So you got 50 back there. Unless somebody buys you out, you'd have to drop a 50 right now, and you can buy Pursuit out. You tell me. All right. I apologize, Andy and Duck. I interrupted your conversation. Back to you.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say one more thing about it, I guess. You called it sort of like a magical realism or whatever you called it. I don't think that's the case. I think in practice that liberal societies kind of fall into that more so because you have implicit shared goods in those liberal societies. To say there's no common good, I think that's more ideological than that, but you're always going to build in some sort of implicit idea of common goods. And some of those are good things, right? I'm not disagreeing with every idea that we come to as the common good, like public safety, trash collection services, things like that, fair elections, all of that. Those are all goods. But to say there's no common good and the individual just gets to choose, I don't think that's true either.
Yeah, and so the reason I think liberalism is different is we've had thinkers ranging from Schumpeter to Milton Friedman, who have described, in the economic sense a little more, but politicians and thinkers abound as well, who take this sort of whatever the idea that you were just talking about. Where was I? So
it kind of sounded like you were about to do an appeal to authority fallacy there.
Be quiet real quick. So no, I wasn't going to do a fallacy because I'm not a moron. No, the ground floor of liberalism is always that we get these magical things springing magical things springing out of competition, right? And so when you talk about a common good, I think for people that are watching this in chat, like when we think of great men like Andrew Carnegie or something like this, they all only had to be successful over 100 years. Their success had to be contextualized over 200 years. Same thing with when we think of personal acts of small charity and stuff like this. Impacting a person's life and taking it seriously only has to be successcul over the long term. You can drop a $20 donation for something. Like we're seeing going on here.
Could. If you want him to land the plane, you can make him do it whenever you want with a $20 donation.
Yeah,
you could do that.
And so
even Kissy Cat says here with the big 50 that she could buy Pursuit's freedom, but she won't. And somebody could spare all of our sanity and boot Duck to the back for at least 5 minutes.
Cat and I are friends. I know
Can we pull up the ledger on how long Pursuit is in the back right now? Or
he's back for 47 minutes, 47 minutes right now.
With the give and take.
With the give and take. So
Sarah,
do you have do you have a timer? Do you have a timer for this kind of stuff? Or
I use a timer for it. Huh?
She keeps timers.
What is it for? For you, when somebody buys you back to the back, so I can watch the time. And I don't have to watch, it just beeps in my ear, and then I'm like, oh, somebody's coming back up. But shout out to Kissy Cat with the big fuck you. I love that. Poor Pursuit. I'm sorry, bud. But somebody please buy Duck off. Just spare us. Anyways, I apologize, Duck. Back to Duck. Just keep on talking. Just keep on talking.
Plane,
Duck.
yeah. So the plane's going. So this is when I hear these grand sweeping claims about Christian nationalism or about republicanism. the thing
Doc,
that I
you were
always
cleared for landing.
forget people.
Nev, you do realize this guy's on your side, right?
People,
No,
Look at what
people
liberalism has done to his brain.
not bringing up the fact that during World War II, liberalism cracked artificial intelligence. I forgive people for forgetting that liberalism built CERN. We've had these massive breakthroughs, and the magic of liberalism is that people in their day-to-day lives can take that same sort of spirit of ingenuity, of genius, of compassion, and they can do small things that they're not able to do anywhere else.
How are you
Collective
defining
ideology is
liberalism?
really powerful as well. But my main thing again is that Plato's a great philosopher.
You have a main thing?
Great stories. Aristotle, functionalism. We can get into teleology. I think another one is Saint Thomas of Anselm or something. I don't know who these people are. Who I do know.
Why are you bringing them up then?
I know of people like Ayn Rand, who's still taught in colleges. She accomplished a lot in a liberal system by not.
I know
really
of a
being
guy
liberal.
named Bob who calls him the destroyer of worlds. I'm not going to bring him up in this conversation because he has nothing to do with it.
Liberals
Nev,
aren't just
he's on
egoists.
your side, Nev.
Liberals.
Oh, hey, don't you fucking put
Okay,
this
Doug,
on me.
Doug, I just want to interrupt you here because I think we're just.
Thank you. God, thank you.
I don't think Doug was being that unreasonable.
I had my phone up. I was like, I had a super chat ready to go. I'm like getting the money moving and shit. And
He just-
so W
Doug's
taking it.
problem,
My
he
faith
just
in
meanders.
humanity is now restored. Duck, you have 20 minutes, sponsored so courteously by James S. James S., thank you so kindly. I have never felt more loved in the world than I do now. God bless America. And then we trade him out for AJ.
No!
Oh no, I'll be quick. Judge me.
Now you know what to do. You know what to do.
No, I'm in and out today. I promise. I just want to check in to say Sarah's the best. You guys, you and Neve, great talk today. Great debate. I think you guys are great individually. I appreciate you so much as content creators. I've always said this. I think philosophically, liberalism is a side effect of just where humanity is going right now.
This message is sponsored in part by.
Sorry,
Oh my God. No, it's fine.
Damn it, Sarah.
Special request from
I
James.
deserve it. I deserve it.
He did do a solid for me here and then requested the horse in chat. So blessings to you, James. Enjoy that sweet ass. All right.
It probably stopped me from ranting, so that's good. I just think we're at
rant, AJ. Keep ranting. Keep on going. Keep on.
I just think we're at a place as a society right now where human beings are addressing certain issues that we didn't before, right? Like if we just step away from our bias, it's very easy to understand why so many things that haven't been addressed before are being so, heavily considered today. It might be because of the technology. It might be because of how much we've become integrated as people from across all planes of existence and culture and religions and all that. But that's all I have to say. I freaking love you guys. I don't, I'll if you need me to be muted here till I get kicked out, I'll do that. I don't want to disrespect you. I wanted to just put that in. I think it's like liberalism is here to stay for a reason, and it's a byproduct of human evolution. And us traditional folks need to accept that so we can better integrate. That's all I had to say.
I think it's a point well made. But so the thing that I kind of wanted to push back towards, and Neve, I guess it's up to you whether you want to go this direction. But what do you guys see as the threats to liberalism? Like, because I do think if we do think it's here to stay,
I can tell you about, right? Yeah.
Like, well, yeah. I mean, sure, yeah. Like, but yeah, sure. Just answer. Yeah, let's just engage with that. Like, what do you think the current threats are to liberalism, the liberal order, and
well, like the economy, wealth inequality.
Definitely.
Even though I don't give a shit about this, I recognize this as an issue because it's so motivating to other people. But like the focus on individuality, I would say, is a big one. Some people think that's a really big problem. I say mind your own fucking business. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Populism being one big one.
I got that one.
Red tape is terrible. We can't do anything. And then I don't know. Like you could look at cultural cohesion, I suppose. Those would be, I would say, the biggest no-nos.
You know, I
bad
don't
ones.
think people are actually being fair to liberalism. I wouldn't say it's really a new concept. It's kind of a concept that's always been all through history. There's always been a type of liberalism, you know. And granted, like religious people say it was pagans at one point, and like people nowadays just call it liberalism. I think there's always been this kind of type of formal or informal sect of society. And
Well,
I don't disagree that it'll most likely continue to be there either.
Do
I'm
you guys
not
disagree
saying
with
it'll be
my
prevailing.
criticisms of it, though? Do you disagree with any of those? Like, are we in agreement there
Not-
at least?
Not
Can we break
necessarily,
on
but
any of
I
those?
think the concern that I have, Cleaner seems to be pointing towards like the idea that there's going to be liberals, like people who are spiritually in the spirit of liberalism. But what I'm concerned about is the actual the legal systems that uphold liberalism, and those are the things that I think are currently under attack, and that's why I think that we should be talking about that specifically, because there will of course always be people who believe in individual freedom. There will always be people who don't want legislated religious morality and stuff like this, and people who want free speech, and people who but if these things are broken down by authoritarian regimes, then they are no longer or they are at least selectively applied.
So
in
you're
a way
wanting to
that
focus
I
on
think
populism.
far right populism is fascism, but so we can talk about that. But
can I ask you a fair question? You said that there are laws that are trying to be removed or whatnot that are a threat to liberalism. Well, could you give us an example of a
Liberal
law?
democracy.
Yeah. So in our current liberal democracy or democratic system, we have a system of checks and balances where the executive branch is not supposed to be able to make decisions unilaterally, right? So Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court. This is very, very well known. Okay, he's openly doing it. Sometimes they're lying about it, but they're like, if you look at his defenders, they're broadly agreeing that he should do it. That they shouldn't. The courts should not have the authority to tell him what to do, which is absolutely against this is very blatantly against the rule of law in our country. And so, if these systems break down, then we don't. If Trump suddenly doesn't have to follow the law, then he is effectively a king. He is effectively a monarch. And
he does have to follow the law, though. He does.
But says who? How do you set? Who's going to make?
The Supreme Court justices that shut him down and stop certain executive orders from being enacted or being executed, they stop it.
He realized they're not.
It doesn't really matter if he listens or not. If they say no, the command directive will listen to them. It's what they're there for.
So
it is what they're there for.
So instead of debating like the Trump administration, can we talk about this in like a conceptual way? Because I think when you talk about it in a conceptual way, at least you can ask yourself if it applies now, but at least we know these core principles of populism. We've seen it in so many different times. So obviously I recognize like the erosion of our democratic process is definitely a big one. Like I wrote a list because I prepared. But
good job.
So there's a core 7, I would say. So democratic erosion, we talked about that, undermining institutions, polarization and division. Obviously you need a bad guy. So that's what populism I think is really pervasive for doing. Disregard for expertise and facts, fake news, or the cultural anti-intellectualism. Fiscal irresponsibility, I would say, is a big one. Threats to minority rights, institutional paralysis or capture. So populists would weaponize things like law enforcement, tax authorities, or regulatory bodies to discourage or to meet their ends. And the last one would be international stability. And I think sometimes the way we're seeing that now, I think would be through the means of some dramatic, quick, aggressive consolidation. So that's what I think. And when I without the Trump derangement syndrome bit, like I do, in my personal opinion, feel like I can apply examples of all of those things in different ways to the Trump administration. But I think the more interesting conversation to have would be like, why, what elements of our society, of liberal society, enable these things in a more conceptual sense, not so much why is Trump such an enigmatic character.
Yeah, I
Well,
was just gonna piggyback that by saying that, like, throwing stones in glass houses, it's one of those things where it's like most of the leaders of the left movement are actually talking about what they're doing wrong because of what's happening right now. So it's often like easy to just blame the opposition, but I think Neve made a great point. Like, self-evaluation is key, especially in this time.
Right. I don't disagree. Sorry,
And
Sarah, go ahead.
shout out to, it's okay. Only a Mr. Bill with the Big Five coder. Welcome to Capitalist Authoritarianism Backstage for 5 minutes. And Ryan is now cozy and comfy back there. James with the Big 10. It's close enough to Franco Friday to add 10 to Ryan. All right, Ryan, I'm adding another 10. That puts you at 13 now. All right, continue on, gentlemen.
So,
Well,
like, this is, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to ask. I mean, you had a good list there, and it sounds like you did a little bit of research and a little bit of background, right? So I was just kind of curious how any of these things are specifically a plague to liberalism and not society as a whole, because it kind of sounds, I mean, just from what I was listening to on your list, it sounds like those things are all things that all sides in society are seeing that are being done to them by others. So how does that not affect every faction in society right now?
Well, I think that us versus them. Sorry, Sam.
That's okay. I'm going to read these real quick. Sarcastic Saint says Ryan needs 5 more in the back for that dumb answer he came up with. There are checks and balances for each branch. Ryan, wear the dunce hat. And Chad with another 5 says add 5 more for Ryan. So Ryan, you're up to a total of 20 now with what's gone in and what's ticking down. And Pursuit, you have 33 minutes, and Duck, you still have 9.5. If anybody wants to buy them back up, it's $1 a minute to get them back up. Okay, back to you, Neve. I'm sorry.
So the us versus them mentality only works when you draw clear battle lines. However, I will make an exception and say that some of the distinctions made are quite nebulous. I think when you get into like immigration, for example, like these people are coming to your country, they're taking advantage of all the things or whatever. When you get into the way the liberal society or liberal democracies are set up, you get into these semantic arguments about like illegal, are they legal, are they not? Are they afforded due process, are they not? So those are obviously, I don't think that's without, I think that's by design as well. Like, I think that allows a more generous restriction rather than being more selective. And I think liberalism enables that. Like, I don't think that's with language, essentially.
Well, I mean, if liberalism enables that, my question is this: what has enabled liberalism to enable that?
Yeah, but Cleaner, just really quick, if you think about like the immigration argument that was just brought up, even in the 80s and 90s, at the what you would call the golden age of democratic, like peak, liberal peak, right, with the Clinton economic surplus era, regardless of the drama and all that, it's kind of a understanding that even then they were very heavy on illegal immigration. So that when the pendulum shifted, now the right is heavy on it and the left isn't. But I think that's kind of what's being addressed here is when you remove bias and you try to look at it conceptually, when you look at it from a more logistical standpoint, then you start to understand what the real issues are. It's not necessarily what you believe in ideologically. It's who's taking our beliefs in DC and contorting them into what is beneficial for them, right? And that's, I think, as a people, that's what we're struggling with in the United States anyway. I know there's people internationally listening to this.
I get what you're saying, AJ. Let me try and be as abundantly clear as I can. Is your name Nev or Neve? Am I saying
Neve.
it right when I say Neve? Okay, my apologies. I didn't know how to pronounce it correctly.
Okay.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to ask questions from the perspective of the person who is completely neutral. All right, so that I can choose what ideology to follow, what method of prescribing the good for the world, so to speak, or whatever metric it is, right? And so whenever I look at things from that perspective, I have to look at things like, okay, how does this affect this specifically? What do we get out of this? What do I get out of it that'll make me want to believe in it or support it over the other things? And so I have to say, from what I keep hearing about liberalism, all right, they have all the same problems that every other part of our democratic process already has. They're not absent without the same problems.
Sorry,
There's
can you pause
corruption.
quickly there?
There's
Would you acknowledge though that
Sure.
our democratic process is liberalism? Like those things are like this, right? Like
No, I would say that there are parts of
the
the
concept of
government.
democracy is liberalism.
No,
liberal democracy. Yes.
no, not
It
completely.
It
No,
kind of is. It kind of is because it.
not
Okay,
not
sorry. I'll
completely.
let you continue, but
I see. I do understand your point. I do understand, and that's why I say not completely. But there are parts of it that do operate that way, right? I get the conceptual understanding of we're supposed to be a republic, but I mean, we're fucking not really. Like when we're so worried
All a
about
republic
whether or
means is that
not
the matters of the state are the matters of the people.
right,
That's all it
I
means.
get that. I get that it means that we are represented by people above us. We put in votes, all that. I get how that. What I'm saying is, in our current society, the way things are working, we're really not. We don't have the time to understand when votes are happening on ordinances, on everything that's going on in government. The only thing that we really have that gives us a representative of a republic, a democracy, is that we vote for the president because everybody knows it's happening. But when it comes down to every other little law that's going on, people don't understand them, and people aren't actually able to vote on them. You get $40 if you go to a voting booth for your day off to go and vote. Like, that's not enough. If you lose $100 to $200 for that day, that's not enough to keep feeding your family.
yeah,
We are literally in a system that is pushing us to where we are not able to be republic. We aren't capable of being a republic. All right? We're not actually able. So I understand what you're
I
saying,
would
and I'm
support
trying
the
to
side
approach
who
this.
allows you to do that.
So
right?
if you're attempting to approach this in a neutral way, like if you're making a purchase, say for example, like what considerations would you want in a purchase? Like you'd want the pros and the cons, you'd want like
Right.
the cost benefit
Yeah.
analysis, the opportunity cost of
Yes.
maybe not doing
That's
said
what I've been
things, right?
asking. That's why I
For
asked net
sure, for sure.
positives, net
So let's do
negatives,
that. Let's go through it. Let's
right.
go through it.
That's why I was asking these questions, because I am approaching it in that way. That was why I was saying, well, what's the net positive the others don't have? Okay, well, if they all have the same net positives, then let's look at the negative side then. What, what are the,
what is more interesting
Technically
to you?
not true.
Things that
No, that is technically true.
So
No,
things
you were
that
asking for moral
liberalism
prescriptions at the start.
What is more
No, I was
interesting? Things that
asking
a
for a
liberalism
net
does
positive.
poorly, or things that it can improve on, things that it does well, things that are going to lead to the end of liberalism? Like which elements of that analysis are you like interested in learning about or knowing
Well,
more
and see,
about?
this is why I'm asking you, because you have a certain espousation that you're going to be giving for liberalism, what you define liberalism as. And I don't know if it's going to be the same as like what other people have said or not, but I assume that you're going to have your own prescription.
Well,
of
I'm
what
selling you
would
a
say
car.
liberalism
I'm
is,
selling
right?
you the car, and I'm telling you the type of tires it has. I'm telling you how fast it goes. I'm telling you
Right,
how much
yeah.
it costs to fill it up, right? So that's what I'm telling you right now. And so you're purchasing this car, and you can ask questions about it. You can say, what's the worst thing about the car? What are things this car needs to improve on? So ask questions. Like that's why I'm throwing I have answers, and I want you to ask these questions.
So I'll give you the general of what I think, most people, and obviously not everybody, but the general of what I think most people in our current society would say. All right. I want to be able to provide for my family.
In the form
I
of
want to
a
be able to
question?
have a family. No, well, you were saying, what is it that I'm looking for, right? So I'm going to give you what is it that
tell
I'm
me
looking
about your
for in a
dream
society.
society. Tell me
Well,
about
no,
your dream society.
I'm just going to say what it is that I'm looking for in a society, because you're the used car salesman. I'm approaching you to buy a vehicle. So I'm going to tell you what it is I'm looking for, and you sell me the vehicle. You see what I'm
Sure.
saying?
Yeah,
All right.
okay,
So I want to be able to raise a family. I want to be able to know that I don't have to worry about them going to school and somebody doing something horrible on the way to school, at school, when they're coming home. I don't want to have to worry about whether or not my wife is going to be hurt. I want a lawful society. I want a healthy society. I want to be able to afford food. I want to be able to afford rent. I want to be able to live, prosper. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, well, I've got this Kamala Harris Miata you might like. Come on over, check it out.
And allow me to interrupt. Kissy Cat sent in another 20. She said, Pursuit said he hates me. That wasn't nice. Think about it a little longer. So Pursuit, I added another 20. You are currently sitting at 46 minutes now still. You're not going the right direction there, buddy. You're supposed to appease the chat so that they bring you back. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do. Sarcastic Saint says 5 says we know Ryan and Pursuit are doing some nasty things in the back with each other. So keep Ryan back there for another 5 because we don't need to see it. and Chad sends in 5 and says another 5 for Radical Coomer. Radical Coomer, you got 24 minutes set, or wait, yeah, 24 minutes sitting back there right now, and only a Mr. Bill with the big 2. I normally don't read them, but why not? Why are liberals attacking a liberal car, Tesla? I don't know.
I think the conceptual idea.
Oh, I apologize. But I do want all of my maters. I've dropped the link in the chat for the Gauntlet. The show is just shifting. The same show, you're just going to be watching on a different channel. We're going to shut the tomato down. The link is pinned at the top, and I'm sure my mods will ever so kindly drop it. Ryan's not doing anything. He's sitting in the back. He could sit there and drop the Gauntlet live link left and right because he's got nothing else better to do at this time right now. So start shifting over. Otherwise, once I hit the close button, it will automatically raid over. So buckle up and get your ride going. But if for any reason the raid doesn't take you, the link will. Okay, back to you, Neve.
So I think the one thing I want to, what I identified in what you were saying is that you prioritize a degree of safety. And so this is, I think, maybe some internal conflict that I have with liberalism and the way that it manifests in different countries. Because you guys have something like, what's your law amendment? Which one is that? I can't, first or second?
Second.
Okay, your Second Amendment, right? So your Second Amendment, again, baked into the idea of safety, or your ability to like fight against tyranny or whatever, like oppression from your government. Like I understand that, and that is a very liberal idea. However, in practice, it is very like it leads to a lot of harm in society, whether it's intended or not. That's something I disagree with. Versus